Okay, I'm going to try and keep this one kind of short. It's a follow-up to two questions I had that I missed when I did my last video. I think they popped up after I already recorded it. But anyways, Darlene asked what a normal day of eating would look like for me when I'm fasting versus a normal day not fasting. Great question, and that's going to look a little bit different based on a number of factors: male, female, active, weight, age, all that kind of stuff. But me in particular, if it's a full fasting day, obviously there's nothing there. So if I'm going 24 hours and I'm just not eating, I will have black coffee. I will throw in some tea just because it makes me feel like I'm looking forward to something. And usually in between those, I'll try to down a good amount of water. So I'm getting in plenty of fluids that whole day. You're not adding any sweeteners or cream or anything like that to that coffee or tea. Even calorie-free sweeteners will trigger an insulin response a lot of times. So don't even use any of those. So just straight up tea or black coffee. If I am fasting for 16 to 20 hours, generally I will break my fast with my keto coffee, which is my whatever. Sometimes I use ghee, sometimes a little bit of coconut oil, sometimes coconut milk, sometimes a little bit of butter, sometimes heavy cream, or any combination of those. I usually try not to make it too big if it's been a longer fast because it can kind of upset your stomach a little bit right out of the gate. So they're usually a little bit smaller, and then the next meal is kind of normal. Another thing I will try to get in would be avocado because of the nutrients in it. The potassium is real high. The MCTs are great when you're coming out of a fast because, again, as I said before, they're going to bump up your ketones and all that kind of stuff. And then just normal meals, whatever I feel like, maybe whatever Sarah cooks. If it's some beef, or maybe we'll do the eggs and that kind of stuff. Just kind of whatever the next meal happens to be. So it's not super specific. And then I just eat if I'm hungry until it's time to go to bed. Normal day. This one's pretty easy for me because I'm an extremely routine type of person. So in the morning, I get up and I make our keto coffees. Again, same stuff I listed before. So I typically make my coffee in the Keurig, and I will throw in maybe about not quite a tablespoon of ghee, probably like a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. Big fan of coconut milk in that one, the stuff that comes in a can, and a couple of drops of sugar-free sweetener like monk fruit or something like that. I use a little turmeric, and I put a couple grinds of salt in there, believe it or not, because you need a lot of sodium when you're on a no-carb diet. Nothing's holding in that water. I think that's it. I don't think I missed anything in that one. So that's my coffee in the morning, and that's pretty much it for breakfast. So that usually gives me a good anywhere from 300 to 400 calories, depending on how heavy I go on those fats, and that will depend on how hungry I am. Next up, I am at work, so typically for lunch, I like to do a shake just for convenience. So I will do 1 or 2 scoops of my protein powder. I always add fiber to that because I'm not huge on veggies just because I'm lazy in cooking them. So I try to get my fiber in that way. Sometimes I will add a little bit of heavy cream or half and half to that shake. Sometimes I will throw in a good serving to serving and a half of macadamia nuts prior to my shake, which again is obviously good for the fats, and that's going to slow any type of insulin spike that I may get from the whey protein. So a lot of these guys I've been following don't really like the whey protein shakes because it can spike insulin. What they don't tell you is that that's the shake by itself. So anytime you're going to add fats to that, it's greatly going to reduce that insulin spike because of the fat content. So that's why I will eat my nuts first, and that way the fats are getting into the system, and then I will mix up the shake, maybe have a little bit of fat in there like from the cream or whatever, and that should blunt it pretty well. Obviously, it seems it's been working just fine. So that's my lunch. And then for dinner, again, typically whatever we make at home. I might make eggs, Sarah might make some beef, whatever it happens to be, it's definitely going to be some sort of a protein and a good amount of fats. And maybe if Sarah does steak, she'll usually do like steak tips, and we'll throw it on a salad or something like that. I like to get my avocado in at night, so I make sure I get one in almost every day, or at least I try to. My eggs, I will typically do 3 or 4 scrambled in butter with some hard cheese mixed in and a pretty good amount of baby spinach fried up in there as well. That seems to work very, very well for me, and I also feel pretty good when I wake up from that. You would think it, with all the butter and the cheese and everything, it would sit kind of heavy, but for whatever reason, those fats and those things really seem to move well, and I feel great in the morning. So that's kind of my typical day. Next question I missed was from Trista. She had a couple good ones. The first one's pretty easy. It was condiments. Anything that doesn't really have carbs. Even if it does have carbs a little bit, like let's say a little bit of ketchup or something, it's not ideal, but if you're not using half the bottle, I don't really see an issue with it. Generally speaking, in the ketogenic diet, the classical sense, you're looking to stay under like 20, 30 grams of carbs. Some people will even say up to 50. That's going to depend, again, on all those factors that I listed before, your age, your activity level, your weight, all that kind of stuff. So something like ketchup, I would say, give it a shot. If it seems like it throws you way out of whack, then don't do it anymore. If it seems like everything's still on track, have some ketchup. Barbecue sauces are going to be super heavy in the sugars, so I would certainly stay away from them. Just flip them over, check out the bottle, read the label, see what it's got. If it's pretty low single digit numbers as far as carb content, it's probably going to be just fine. The next question she had was actually really good, and now I can't remember it. Fasting. Yes, fasting. Do I have a certain meal before I do a bigger fast? That's an awesome question. And it's a big fat yes. I do. And I noticed, I think it was on accident at first, and then I started catching on a little bit. So I like to actually have one of 2 meals before one of my big fasts. So one of them is my eggs, and I will throw in about a half a package of bacon, which is quite a bit, but it's a substantial amount of fats, obviously. It tastes delicious. I love it. And it keeps me full, and I don't wake up hungry. So right out of the gate, it's very easy for me to start off and not feel hungry. So that one works very, very well for me. Obviously, you're not me. You may need a little bit less, like a couple of slices or something like that, but that's something you could experiment with for yourself and see what might work. The other one I noticed that worked very well for me a few times was you're in town, you know, the local Italian place. I go there and I get the chicken Caesar salad, but instead of the Caesar dressing, I get the regular Italian on the side. I know it's not your best source of fat, but they put it in a pretty big cup, and I use just about all of it, which is a substantial amount of calories. I eat all the chicken first, and I dunk every piece in that wonderful dressing. And then I finish by putting what I have left of the dressing over the salad and wiping that out. So the last thing I eat there, obviously, is all the greens, which again, all the fiber and water and content and all that is going to keep you fuller longer, plus all the calories from the fat and the dressing. So those 2 meals, for some reason, I believe the fat and fiber and all that kind of stuff really slows everything down and allows me to stay full and wake up not starving. And that seems to work very, very well for me. You'll have to experiment with that a little bit on your own and see what works. But I think a little bit higher fat content, maybe a little bit higher fiber content would really, really help before you try to do a longer fast. And again, with the longer fast, throw in that black coffee, throw in the tea, Make sure you're pounding a bunch of water, and that should help get you through the day. All right. Bye-bye.